This hour, with peace negotiations between the U.S. and Iran on hold for now. Israeli strikes in southern Lebanon this morning killed at least 5 people, according to Lebanese state media. And yet another test of the ceasefire reached between Israel and Hezbollah Friday, after fighting postponed peace talks between the U.S. and Iran. The memorandum of understanding that President Trump signed starts a 60-day negotiating clock for a permanent end to the war in Iran. The president has said that he wanted a different deal than President Obama's 2015 nuclear deal. And in some ways, it is. President Trump has a lot fewer specifics on addressing Iran's nuclear activities, instead weighing economic incentives. Among them, waivers for Iran to export oil and a $300 billion fund with regional partners for Iran's economic development. It also fails to achieve many of the president's key objectives for starting the war. But despite that, in a post on social media this morning, he blasted critics, claiming that Iran is defeated militarily, and used an insulting nickname to accuse President Obama of giving Iran billions in cash. And several months of war haven't appeared to change Trump's thinking, as he showed in his first interview since the signing.
What have you learned about not just the exercise of power, but the limits on your power as a result of the conflict?
There are no limits.
No limit.
No, not. I haven't learned that lesson yet. I know there are, but, there are no limits.
Joining us now, Mark Caputo, White House reporter for Axios, who spoke with the president on Thursday. Mark, congratulations on the interview. Thank you for coming on set to discuss. It's funny because my takeaway from this exercise is actually exactly the opposite. This is the one thing that has truly tested the president's imperial powers. Do you sense that subconsciously he understands that? I mean, tell us about that interview. He also seems exhausted and hoarse and tired.
He had flown in from Europe. He was only on 2 hours of sleep tops. He was a lot more tired than we're used to seeing him. And nevertheless, his attitude there was one of relief, because he feels like there's light at the end of the tunnel with Iran, and he wants to get out. To answer the first part of your question, is his advisors in unguarded moments speculate, they won't dare ask him, that if Trump had a time machine, had the ability to go back to February 28th, he probably wouldn't do it again.
I have been, this is the question I have wanted to ask him. Do you regret all of this?
Yes. There's a reason they haven't asked him, is because he's not going to say yes, because that means his judgment is flawed. And it also would indicate that everything he's saying has no basis in fact. And what he's saying is that what he's saying is we have won, everything is great. And if he's expressing remorse about what he did, then he'd be undercutting his own message. A better way to phrase it.
I want to play another piece from your interview with the president. This is him talking about whether or not they achieved regime change in Iran.
I actually think it's regime change, if you want to know the truth. These are different people.
How is it regime change if you have...
Because they're different people.
But you have Khamenei Jr., you still have a lot of IRGC officials there.
They're different people.
He's right. They are physically different humans. Right. But literally, he is the son of the last guy. It's the supreme leader. The folks who are seem to be in charge are more hardline. So maybe it's regime change, but to a regime that's maybe worse.
I don't know if it's worse or better. I'd leave that to others. The United States since 1979 has always been looking for the moderates in Iran and doesn't seem to be able to ever find them.
Right.
What the problem that this war exposed in fighting Iran was Iran's larger strategy, what they call the Mosaic Doctrine, which anticipated the idea of a decapitation strike, and therefore had a more diffused power structure, so that if one guy or group of guys got killed, new guys could fill the void. The difference, they say now, is the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the paramilitary, sort of more fanatical, in our view, wing of the Iranian political system. They're now much more in charge than they were before.
Yeah. There's a difference between a dictatorship and just an authoritarianism in general. The dictatorship is almost singularly one person, whereas in Iran, it's an authoritarianism where, like, multiple issues or multiple folks.
It's a coalition of little dictators.
Exactly.
But then again, maybe someone could say that of our system.
Exactly.
So,
well, there's that.
Mark, how did you find the president? I mean, you just mentioned a moment ago he just come back from Europe. He was on 2 hours of sleep. I mean, you cover this White House. How did he seem to you?
For me, the underlying sense he was sort of carrying with him as relief is, again, he sees a way out of this conflict. And so he was happy to say, stock market's up, oil's down, things are going to be good again.
It seems to me in watching your interview and also just following this president, the PR of everything seems to be more important than the actual policy that he is trying to achieve. And that's in high relief when it comes to this Iran quote unquote deal. Am I wrong in thinking that? Is the president more concerned about the public relations value, how it looks, versus the concrete deal that could be reached, if one can be reached at all?
I don't know how adequately I can answer that, but the sense I get from him is he wants to move on from the war.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And after weeks of saying, I'm not thinking about gas prices, I'm not thinking about the economy, I'm not thinking about the stock market, what came out of his mouth in the interview here is, I'm thinking about gas prices, I'm thinking about oil, I'm thinking about the stock market, right? And so that's a real sort of window into his thinking. And so is the idea that he realized he had reached a point, and it was reached a while ago, where if you want to engage in a war, there's an old saying that maneuver without fire is suicide, but fire without maneuver is inconclusive. And maneuver means ground troops, and Trump doesn't want to do it.
Right.
And he doesn't want to escalate like that. For him, that's sort of a red line. I'm not saying he won't do it again. There is the 60-day window. The chances of the 60-day window getting extended and extended again, and a series of extensions, highly probable.
Completely evaporating if the Hezbollah launches bombs into Israel or vice versa.
Yeah, welcome to the Middle East.